3, 2, 1.
Okay.
All right.
Whew.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to the pod. This is our pod, named The Safe State. How do you like the new jingle?
Yeah, it's much better than mine, which is much more litigious. And
I don't think we have to worry about litigation with our viewership. Thank you so much, viewers, for supporting us this entire time. But also,
viewers?
you know what I mean.
They see the vibrations.
I'm
in the
on
sky.
a lot of cold medicine right now. Oh, I got the strong stuff. I got the Mucinex DM. It's that 12-hour horse pill you got to take.
I tried taking that once. I broke out in hives.
I'm funny enough, I'm getting little red welts on myself from it, and I've been vibrating literally like shaky for the last couple days.
I remember I took some of that when I turned out I had pneumonia, and I was in Florida, like in this like really nasty hotel, and I was just sitting on this like sun lounger, like just very very feverish, but at the same time I was convinced that like somehow the sun would cure me of my thing, and I took a bunch of like Mucinex and one of those hardcore cough medicines and had something close to a religious experience where I woke up covered like in sunburn and hives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's not good. I don't know about these medicines, but I definitely know there's certain medicines like antibiotics and stuff you cannot be in the sun. Steroids, I think, are another one.
Oh yeah.
Where you're supposed to reduce your exposure to sunlight during that time. And you're not supposed to combine Mucinex DM with other cough syrups because they all have that Dexmeth in it.
Dexmeth.
You know, that meth that makes you really dexterous. It's a +2 to dex.
Definitely not something from Fallout.
No. That really should have been. Now I kind of want to get a little mod going there.
Yeah, no. I'm sure there is.
Just rebrand over-the-counter medicines into Fallout. Get some robo-gels going.
Just purple drink.
Ooh, I found Scissor.
Yeah. So
how's your week and a half been? Haven't spoken in a little bit.
Yeah, no, I was sick too, although I seem to have recovered much quicker than you did. I had a chest thing.
Ooh.
I watched a lot of YouTube and fell in and out of consciousness for a few days, and I feel better now.
Nice.
But I did fall asleep watching a documentary about Kabbalah, and that really went in some weird places.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to work out what some of those dreams meant.
Is it even more confusing when you wake up from the video and autoplay is just like taking you down the rabbit hole, and you're like, what has happened to my algorithm?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just too tired to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on some weird ancient aliens thing.
Thankfully that I hopefully have purged all of my YouTube of that, although it tries. How about you? How's your illness journey been?
This is a weird cold. It's been a head cold, and this is the first time that a head cold for me has not turned into a sinus infection or a chest thing. It's literally just stayed in my head. I have no sore throat. I have no mucus in the lungs. It's odd.
Mucus.
I don't trust it. But I'm doing my best to try to heal because I'm working tomorrow night. Hopefully. I mean, if I'm sick, I can't. But
no, exactly. Just in case anyone's out there listening, I did test myself for COVID, and I did not test positive.
I also tested myself twice for COVID, and both times negative.
Yes, so I can't pass it to you through the sound waves yet. We'll see what happens.
We're working on it.
Still could mutate.
Oh, okay. Got my lemon ginger tea down.
Lemon ginger tea. That's something a very not important thing I was thinking about. So I went to buy some green tea at the grocery store today or yesterday, and I could not find green tea that is just green tea. Like it was all lemon green tea or ginger green tea or licorice green tea. I had to like go into like the weirdo organic section to find just green tea.
Weird.
I know.
Huh. I don't know. I have to be really
What-
careful with green tea. If I drink it on an empty stomach, I will throw up like every time. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's very odd. Like it is a guaranteed way to get me to upchuck. Just a little sip of green tea first thing in the morning. I don't know.
Weird. I have a similar problem with what's the tea? It's like it's not Lapsang Souchong. It's like the
Oh, yeah, the stuff my ex-wife used to exclusively drink in college.
it's like it's kind of like smoky tasting, and it's Chinese.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
whatever. That stuff, it goes right through me. It's like it's a bad time. It's a bad time.
Yeah, I never cared for the taste of it. Tried it a couple times. Wasn't for me.
I know we don't normally talk about comments on the YouTube stuff in the pod,
No.
but we did get a comment on the last episode, which was a fun time editing. Let's just
I
say
bet.
that less than half of the recorded material made it,
Yeah.
and even then, I regret leaving some of that in.
Yeah.
But the comment is, the intro is only 20 minutes in and hidden behind a conversation about falsified poop high scores. So, there's that.
Nice.
Yeah, I apologize for that episode, everyone.
don't.
To humanity.
I don't. I apologize for nothing. I am a human being in all my flaws.
Yeah, but you can still apologize.
Okay, fine. I am sorry. But
I mean, it's not like God's ever apologized. It's human to apologize.
isn't him like sacrificing his son kind of like an apology?
He didn't really. Can you sacrifice an immortal being?
Hmm.
I mean, that seems like that is just like oh look, I made my dishes dirty for you, and I also have a dishwasher, and also it's not that inconvenient because I'm an omnipotent super being. I don't know.
And I
It seems
am
like
the
not that much of a
dishes and the
sacrifice.
dishwasher. Yeah.
Exactly. And also my son somehow. Yeah. So last time it was poop talk, and now it's blasphemy.
I guess by that God's his own dad. Okay, that's interesting. There's something to be thought of there.
Yeah, well,
Man.
why not? Someone
This
had
cold
to be.
medicine's great.
All right, so should we dive into this week's episode? This content of this week's episode?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
We can do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So the intro is this. Welcome to the Save State. It's a podcast where we talk about video games
Yes, it is.
that we have played.
Mm-hmm.
And this week we played Medal of Honor: Underground.
Mon Dieu!
The one you didn't play. The one with all of the best, very authentic French accents. What did you think of this? Because I have played this a lot, and I found myself very familiar with it. I wonder what you thought, because I'm assuming you didn't play this.
I never
back in the
played.
day.
I missed it completely. I played the first Medal of Honor game that came out. It was awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed like the more grounded, like Call of Duty at the same time was good with depicting World War II. Like the Normandy invasion on that game is one of the best sequences in FPS gaming, in my opinion.
not only because they took a lot of it from Saving Private Ryan, but also
right. And
excellent
then this
sequence.
one's Spielberg's baby, which is more like Yes, I know, but I love the integration of historical footage from this. I really enjoyed the storytelling of this one a lot more. I don't remember as many story beats in the first Medal of Honor game because I played it like right when it came out. But oh man, this I really enjoyed this. I thought it was going to be really janky. I thought it was going to be like a GoldenEye clone to a degree, and it is in some of its
is in
mechanics.
some ways, yeah.
Like you have to stop and aim like GoldenEye was. But what's different about it is if I go back and play GoldenEye, it's unplayable. Like even the port overs, I can't play them because you'll see an enemy shooting at you in the distance. You can't see them. Like, the
Right.
details are so washed out, and even though everything's real clunky and early day 3D graphics in this, the detail, everything pops out. They made sure their color palette worked for that. So it still holds up in that way. I I enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I think part of what benefits from Underground is that this came out at the end of the PlayStation life cycle. In fact, a lot of the reason that a lot of people didn't play it is because I think it came out after the PS2 came out, maybe like very close to the same
I
time.
think they were working on a PS2 Medal of Honor game at the same time, so this was like a smaller dev team doing this one.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like they had like a lot of experience with this generation of graphics, but like I think you're right, especially with like I think what this game does really well is level design. Like I feel like I remember like going back and playing this, there are some levels I remembered almost exactly from when I was a kid, especially the Crete level, which I don't, and I know I played the first Medal of Honor more than if I mean at least as much, or if not more than this one. But the first one just does not like stick in my head like Underground does. They do such a good job of like like making sure the level also the levels aren't too long. Like you have like they're kind of divided into like missions on each zone. So you like you go to Crete, there's three little levels within Crete or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like they don't overstay their welcome. They're not too easy, but you can get into some hard spots if if you're not paying attention. And the controls took like I played this on emulator.
Yep.
Assuming you did
Yep.
too. It took a little bit of work to get the controls right, but like the controls that this uses with the dual stick control setup is basically what the controls for most FPSs would be
Yeah.
going forward. I I don't know if the first Medal of Honor did that though, because I don't know how widespread DualShock controllers because the DualShock controller came out halfway through the PlayStation's lifetime,
Yep.
and a lot of earlier games didn't have DualShock support, and I certainly keep forgetting that a lot. So I think it's impressive that they kind of already arrived at like what would be the de rigueur FPS um, control layout.
Yeah, it was kind of prescient of them at the time because there were a lot of PC FPSs coming out. I mean, that had already been an established field for a long time, and
Hmm.
this was probably the first FPS, like looking back on it now in hindsight, that knew where FPS was headed on console. Like they could see how it was going to be interacted with by the player, how like level design, layout, your controller scheme, all of that. Like really good job on their part, especially since they were pulling it from the first one, which would not have had in any way a dual stick component to it. That was really smart of them to modify that over for this.
Yeah, and then to land on it with like the first try, it wasn't even like weird tank controls or whatever. Like, you can set it up that way.
Sure.
Also, I think they were very smart with like the level design. Like some of the like there's one level I didn't particularly care for, which is near the end where you're in the streets of Paris, and they try to make these big expansive areas, which the PlayStation is not capable of
Mm-mm.
handling, and really the game kind of slows down if there's more than four enemies on the screen at once. But generally speaking, they're very good about having close rooms that had enough different geometry where you were having to kind of figure out where people were, but at the same time, it wasn't just like a run and gun Doom game. Like there was a sense of place without it feeling like a labyrinthine mess. Like you kind of felt like okay, this could be like a frame like a bomb or German bomb launching site
Oh
or
yeah, yeah. The
the
facility where you actually have
catacombs or
to like
whatever.
go do the sabotage and like get out through the tunnel. Like I love facility levels in these old shooter games, and that one was perfect. Like the hallway layout for shootouts was so fun. I found myself like diving down to the ground a lot and then like getting into that prone position and taking enemies out that way. The enemies for the most part have to follow the same rule mechanics as you for aiming, so they
Yeah.
also have to kind of stop to take aim for a moment, so it gives you a chance to kind of take your shot. They balance that really well, except for the auto guys. Those just fucking lay into you all the time.
Yeah.
It's
On
rough.
the late game enemies in the secret level.
I was gonna say, yeah, and then
Which
there's the Wolfenstein enemies.
yeah, the
Um,
very very subtle homage to
Very
Wolfenstein.
subtle. But yeah, this was a really good game for that. I'm surprised the whole way through as I was playing, like how smooth everything felt. As clunky as it was for the time. Like I'm a very forgiving gamer. So this was just a smooth experience. Was there a standout level for you?
I mean, for me, it was always Crete. Like I have the Crete level burned into my brain. I don't really know why, but like how they managed to like even get these really terrible looking textures, like these PlayStation One textures, to have like the Minoan guy jumping over a bull on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also that's one of the ones where you're kind of in a like the early on you're like a reporter, so you have like a
Yeah.
camera and you can
That's
kind of
easily
like
my favorite like whole mission is the stealth.
yeah, you can kind of like show them your papers, like, look, I'm a reporter, instead of shooting people, and then you can shoot them anyway, because the stealth in this game, like, you can shoot, they don't hear that far,
No, well,
usually.
that's what's nice
Um,
is that like a GoldenEye or one of those games, if you had a stealth mission in it, or like the Mission Impossible game that was like a GoldenEye
oh
clone that
yeah,
came out, which I enjoyed, but
yeah,
if you fucked up the stealth in it, the whole mission, like you're not stealthy anymore. I
that
liked
was
that
very
this one.
unforgiving.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I liked that this one was like, well, no, reasonably, like you kill the enemies that blew your cover, and then no one else is the wiser. There's no reason they would just know. They're not all omniscient.
no, right.
But it was my favorite level, and on my notes I have Medal of Honor: Papers, please on here.
Yeah,
It's the ability of the camera to both blind temporarily the enemy and also like get them to do silly fun poses and stuff.
yeah,
It was just something really fun to that.
yeah. You can tell that they weren't taking themselves nearly as seriously with this one as they were with the first one. Aside from like the goofy French accents and the secret level with sentient wolfmen and magic guys. There's just like a
Yeah.
goofiness. Like also some of like the some of the secret, like you had like a lot of every mission you had like objectives aside from just kill everyone and get to the end of the
Mm-hmm.
level. You had to like set bombs or steal the documents or whatever. And some of those were pretty playful. Like
Mm-hmm.
almost there was one that felt, in fact, there's like a little bit of an undercurrent of Indiana Jones all the way through this.
Oh, sure.
Not just because of like it's World War II, but just like this Nazi like artifact mysticism stuff where you're like, you know, going to Crete to get stuff before the Nazis do, or like breaking into the SS hideout to take their wackadoo like magic symbols and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
It also has like that tone, like that kind of more playful tone. Like this is less Band of Brothers and more Indiana Jones for Spielberging it up.
And I wonder if that had to do with there being a smaller development team to this, since like the main team was working on the next Medal of Honor game for the PS2. I did see that EA, once they knew they had like this hit on their hands, they wanted obviously like the PS2 to be like the next target goal for the game series.
Right.
But I wonder if this smaller team working closer together, like you start developing little inside jokes, you have less like input from people higher and higher up into the process. So maybe you feel a little more free to get playful with it and take yourself a little less seriously. It definitely did them a lot of service. And I know this game was like on the fence if it was even going to happen for a bit there because EA was so concerned about there being a female lead in the game. This is the first, one of the first, because I think Perfect Dark would have come out at this point. So
Yeah.
you've got Joanna Dark and now
Manon.
Manon, yeah, from this.
Manon
Manon.
Baptiste.
And I think that's it, like for first person.
So in the early, like, they do a really good job of like kind of making all the menus and stuff, like things that actually would exist in the like what do you call it? That doesn't matter, but like you go to save and it's like the code machine, and you go
Mm-hmm.
to start the mission or whatever, and uh, and you have like these little mission briefings between episodes, the voice of which is the same guy who does. I can't remember his name, but I love the voice of the general or the
I
commander.
looked him up because
I can never
I
remember
don't
his
remember
name.
the name of the guy, but I looked him up because I wanted to see if it was Patrick Stewart putting on a little bit of a voice Because there's some times like early on where I was like, is that Patrick Stewart doing like his CIA from American Dad voice? Where it's like a little extra English?
I can never remember his name, but he also did the voices for like like in Civilization, like the quotes in Civilization
Mm,
5, I want to say, and then also he's in a couple episodes of Star Trek as not Patrick Stewart. But
sure.
he's like he's like a capital A actor, like did Shakespeare and stuff on the stage. But there's actually early on you get like a black and white photo of the main character, and it's obviously some kind of touched up like modern photo. I googled all over the place. I could not find any evidence for this, but she looks exactly like Jan from The Office. And I just like I will show you an image from the Medal of Honor wiki. Maybe I'll put this in the description, but I'll trust you to search in search Manon in there's a black and white photo of her drinking a drink, which I am going to send to my co-podcaster as soon as I find it.
Ooh.
Here. Open image in new tab. Thank you.
Let me see this thing.
And then I will send a picture of this.
Oh wow, it's like eerie.
Yeah, I am convinced that the model for Manon is the actress who plays Jan from The Office, Melora Hardin, but I have no proof because obviously this is like it could have been something she did for like a catalog thing and they like edited it and no one cared because she was a television actress at the time and
Sure.
this is a video game that no one played. But I feel that these are the same person. I'll put a link to these.
I think that's
show notes.
I like it. We're gonna say that's canon now.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
That's
you.
uncredited work she did.
I mean, there's no way anyone could ask her.
No. Honestly, at
Although,
this
to be
point,
fair,
she'd probably be
maybe
like, I don't know. Like there was a flyer up
also
at college.
There's no there's no guarantee that they used the image with permission back in the wild and woolly days of PlayStation.
That's true.
development.
Someone could have just been like, "Oh, I know what I'm going to make this person look like." Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
As we get more and more like common with actors being in video games these days, it's an interesting thing. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I like how mocap is going for video games, and it makes sense to utilize it. I don't know if it makes sense to utilize it by hiring like big name movie actors or TV people to come in and do the work instead of like.
Yeah, I think that's kind of just a general problem is that since basically the like 16-bit era, we've been trying to make video games movies,
Mhm.
or rather like cinema is like the art form of the 20th century. So everything needs to elevate itself towards cinema. A book doesn't really mean anything if there isn't a movie version of it. And so video games have been constantly getting more cinematic. And I think we're at the point where they're indistinguishable from each other because we can make movies nowadays have so much CGI and we can basically do that in video games. So like actors obviously going to be in that, but I think the problem is that we kind of lost the forest through the trees and that we're just making movies that you can kind of play. Like I think that
Are we about to talk about Hideo Kojima's recent interview?
exactly.
Yes.
Recently, he mentioned like he announced that he was making Death Stranding 2 and he was going to make another game, which
Fizzent.
he,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, which is supposed to be a spiritual sequel to Medal of Honor or Metal Gear Solid. And he said it'll be a movie, but more of a video game. And I'm like, Mr. Kojima, all of your video games have been movies that are also kind of a video game.
Yes.
Like, I don't understand how you could remove more video game from your video games.
Let this beautiful man just
movies.
do what he needs to do. He doesn't actually know what video game is. Like, what game is, he don't know. But what he makes is fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I will play both of those things, and I'm looking forward to playing both of them.
I'm not looking forward to Death Stranding 2, because I need to give Death Stranding another shot. I did not like it, but I also wasn't playing with the proper setup. Like, I didn't have a controller that could rock my baby. So I,
Yeah,
I missed a
there's
whole
so much.
mechanic based on that. But I will always remember his quote of, I forgot that video games are supposed to be fun to play.
Yeah, like Death Stranding to me feels like it's like I may be puffing its tires up a bit too much here, but it's like it's like the Ulysses of video games, the Finnegan's Wake of
Hmm.
video games,
Hmm.
where it's just like it's miserable and it takes forever and takes you three, four, five times to actually finish it. But once you do, it's pretty great. Like
Yeah.
I hated Death Stranding the first two or three times I played it, and then when I finally got to that one playthrough that I could get through it, it took a while, years.
Hmm.
So I don't begrudge anyone who doesn't like it, and I don't know that everyone it's for everyone because it's not for everyone. It's a miserable game, but it is very good. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
but speaking of movies, I think this game, let's say Medal of Honor Underground, did borrow a lot from movies, even if it doesn't like have the shot-for-shot remake of the Saving Private Ryan and Saving Private Ryan
I
Normandy
like
scene.
Saving Private Ryan though. Can we recut that movie with some AI? I'm not a huge AI fan, but like for this,
Yeah,
let's deep
it's
fake
just
that movie.
yeah, and they get there and he's just like eating all the Nazis because he's a lion. They're like, oh,
Yes,
what were we
that's it.
doing?
Oh, we're actually good. Wait, why haven't we been using lions in the war?
um, but like the soundtrack to this, that is say Medal of Honor Underground, does such a good job of like hewing to that John Williams, Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers style music with like a hint of Indiana Jones,
Hmm.
but without actually being it. To the point that I was like, maybe this is John Williams. It
Yeah, it's got
isn't.
like those little
Um,
swelling scores and the doo 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 kind of
yeah,
sounds. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. It's really well done. Like I think that I'm kind of surprised I don't hear it outside of like when people talk about war games like this soundtrack at least should probably be something people include. Um,
I think it's because honestly, I don't know how many people know this one exists. Like I
yeah,
did not know it was a game.
yeah, and honestly, like there's recent coming up in the soon in the future they'll be releasing like just kind of remastered versions of the original Metal Tomb Raiders, which
Mm.
they look like they're just remasters, like they're literally just making the textures better and kind of smoothing out the polygons and stuff. Hopefully that is the case. I we'll see. But like this, if this game, I think could hold up to that. Like I think if you were to just kind of smooth out the polygons and brush up the textures, I think this could survive really well, especially in like as boomer shooters come back as like a retro genre. Although I would say this definitely belongs more in the golden eye school of shooters than like a boomer shooter traditionally would be. But it I think it has legs.
Yeah, I would like to see a new crack at this series. I forgot how enjoyable Medal of Honor in my mind kind of blends with early Call of Duty, and it's hard
Mm.
to distinguish the two from each other. But playing this again, it makes me want to revisit the Medal of Honor series itself and like get refamiliarized with the characters, because that's the other interesting thing of this is that it does call back the character from the first game, and it's both a prequel and a sequel to it,
Right.
and like a little bit of the in between. It's fun that they did that. They pulled that off. Hmm.
I just remembered the word I was trying to remember for like the last 20 minutes.
Oh, good.
Diegetic.
Oh,
Diegetic
thank
is what I wanted to say.
God that you remembered that. That I was just gonna be lost all day.
No, but that like the menus are
Yes.
all diegetic and that they exist within the universe.
Yep.
And
Yep.
yeah, yeah. That's. I'm sorry. It's been bothering me this whole
Hmm.
time.
It's a shame to feel like there isn't too much more to dive into on this, but is there
But that's
any?
because it's a very simple, honest game. Like it's just a
Yeah,
big adventure where you shoot Nazis and run around and
that
you
you can
have
complete in
like you
about
go through
3 hours,
catacombs.
maybe
Yeah,
4.
it's fun. Yeah, that's about what I did it in. Like, and also I remember as a kid just coming home being like from school, like I got some time before dinner. Let's just whip through a run of Underground real quick,
You know,
and it's just fun like that.
there is something about those older games, like not all of them, clearly. Like you sometimes have a Karnov, But there's something about the old games that like you could just sit down, you have a few hours, like a Saturday morning before everyone gets up, or like or you're homesick, from school or something, and you could
Mm-hmm.
play the entire game that afternoon, like in that sit down
Right.
sequence, or like a lunch break and then come back to it, leave it on, hope it didn't freeze while you were gone. But you don't see that as much anymore. Like games have to hold your attention for so much longer. They want to see like concurrent player activity, and there's so many more things to keep you engaged with it instead of just a simple in out. That was the experience. Huh.
Yeah, yeah. I think that might be why so much of our generation has like gravitated towards speed running
Mm.
as a thing, because it does not, aside from like giving you an excuse to go back and play these old games from your childhood, nostalgia and all that jazz. It does kind of create nice little digestible playthroughs of games
Mm-hmm.
where you can be like, oh, just do a 2 hour run of this, or you can watch someone do that, where you're just like, I'm gonna watch them do a quick run of this, as opposed to like, and now I'm in chapter 3 of Diablo, or I'm gonna spend like watching some streamer play through Baldur's Gate, or not that that's a bad game, but it's a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas just it's like it's not like a sport where it's just like all the everything's known ahead of time. You're just gonna see who wins, but it's also not like just watching someone play a video game, because like there's like an end point and understood like finality that is also much more digestible than a 60, 70 hour game, or like a played like a service game like a Battlefield or a Call of Duty.
Yep.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend this. But briefly, we'll touch on one before we finish the final secret level, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is very hard. But it's definitely an homage to Wolfenstein. You are in this one, however, you are the character from the first Medal of Honor,
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Patterson, and you go through like this evil castle full of magic Nazis,
Yep.
and
Knights
the
with
first two, like the
shields,
first,
like those fucking
yeah,
shields.
and it's so weird because like there's like most of these games, like or most of this game, you have like a setting and then three like missions in it. And the first mission is just called Where Beagles Dare, and you fight dogs like they're just normal dogs. But as you go through, you end up fighting like anthropomorphic dogs with guns who are standing on their hind legs, and then knights in armor. And then in order to get to the last
Nutcrackers and
level,
like
exactly, in order to get to the last level, you have to construct a robot nutcracker
yeah.
in order to fight your
Yeah.
way through the Nazi hordes. And that was just a lot of fun. I liked that they did that. I mean, I wonder if maybe they're just like you said, no one's gonna notice this, so let's just throw it in there. But
It it kind
it's
of
the
made
kind of stuff you would
me
never see nowadays.
I kind of liked the anachronistic mashup of like World War II fighter meets knights and match. I mean, that's why Wolfenstein works
Yeah.
so good. But I'd kind of like to see like a weird throwback game where like soldier in the trenches gets thrown back through a portal like in time to like some kind of like a kid in King Arthur's court kind of thing, but the kid has a gun. I don't know. I'd
Yeah,
just
the
like to
new
see that game.
yeah, the new For Honor class is guy with gun.
Guy with gun. It's S tier. It's the new meta. Ah, I don't know. This was very fun, and I liked those final little missions. They weren't as good as the main missions purely because they didn't have that like touchstone of real footage and like
hmm
the people within it that felt like there was like actual stakes while you were playing, even though
hmm
it's this old of a game. Like, you know, there were moments that like hit still within the
Yeah.
story beats,
Oh yeah.
and they did a good job with like tying emotion into it.
Yeah, and it's like it kind of works. It kind of, especially as a kid when I played this, I was like, oh, so that's the history of World War II. It does kind
Mm-hmm.
of give you those little like tidbits of actual history.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also the last level is very hard. Like there's a huge jump in difficulty.
Yes. Yes. But I appreciate them having those little fun secret levels, like the nonsense stuff at the end, because it let them kind of experiment more with the gameplay and mechanics they had designed. Kind of really show off, like, look at all the stuff we can do with what we built behind the scenes to make this game work.
You can imagine like a lot of those gameplay setups for like multiplayer games that would become popular, like your capture the flags or your like defend the objective type stuff. You can really see how that would actually could have worked with this engine. You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Um, I
probably
guess that's a
not
ding
because
to
of
them because they definitely like established within this the escort mission even more so.
well, that's true. That's
But
true.
you know, we'll forgive them. Like people did not know what they were doing by establishing escort mission as a gameplay mechanic.
And also, at least in this game, the escort like usually shoots
Yeah,
people.
they can
So it's
actually do stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
that's fair.
All right. So I think we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more
Yeah,
podcast.
some water and medicine in me.
Good call. And we're back. All right,
And we're
Mike.
back.
I know you have a talking point for today's roundtable, but I actually have a wee bit of news I want to talk about before we get to that. That's
Let's
okay.
dig into it. News.
So this was announced last week that Disney will invest $1.5 billion in Epic to create a new entertainment universe.
Yeah.
Which will be a new partnership to create open games and entertainment universe. This must be the most amount of money spent on the vaguest concept I have ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, what does any of that mean? Like, people are getting fired left and right in the video game industry, and people are like, let's spend $1.5 billion on gibberish.
This is what happens
Just
when you have
meaningless
too much
word
money.
salad.
Like
like,
I need more details before I can form an opinion because this means nothing to me. Do they mean like take all of the IP and merge it in, or is this going to be new IP? Is this a whole new venture that way? Are they going to try to do like what Kingdom Hearts did? Like that would be interesting. Is like a shared, like you'll have your own separate games, but then like there'll be like Avengers-esque movie merge game. I don't know. As I'm even saying it, I fucking hate this.
I mean, that's the thing is, I don't think anyone knows what they mean by this. I don't think Fortnite, I mean, Epic knows what they mean with this, and I
Yeah.
don't think Disney knows what they mean. Just Disney knows we need to be in video games, and they went to the investors and said, "Look, we spent $1 billion on video games, so that's going to mean profit later." And they're
Is it
like,
going to be
"Yeah,
like how
good
League of
use
Legends is now having like branch off games for their characters, or like how Titanfall became Apex Legends, or
Who knows? Maybe we'll see Mickey Mouse in the next Unreal tournament. Who the heck knows?"
I mean, actually,
Like,
that would be pretty great. Like if they were okay with loosening their collar up and letting us fully decapitate him in a death tournament, that's fun. That's good fun then.
although speaking of thank you. Speak, Birdie.
Oh, he's
Birdie.
saucy.
That's enough. Thank you. No, to talk about something else, which I was actually kind of excited to see. The teaser trailer for the new Deadpool movie came out.
Yeah, it did.
I was actually really excited. It's the first time I felt excited for a Marvel movie in a minute.
Yeah.
I was like, this looks really cool.
I felt the same way. Like those are always fun, silly movies to watch. So I don't know. The more goofy a superhero movie is these days, like I don't want necessarily a Taika Waititi movie, but like I do like
I
more
wouldn't mind
comedy
it.
being injected into the superhero movies. Like
I don't
when they
like
were taking
dour
themselves so
superheroes.
seriously, that's when it really was shitty.
Yeah, and then you notice that Marvel started taking themselves really seriously, and it got really bland and boring. And yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's nice to see, especially like, I mean, Deadpool's kind of got his shtick, but like that shtick in a vacuum of Deadpool is kind of annoying. But if you can
Mhm.
kind of use that as a weapon to kind of get the Marvel Cinematic Universe less of a like stick, just to get some fire underneath them
Yep.
to like refresh it. I hope that turns out well. Also, I liked the like quarter second of Wolverine you see at the end of it, where he's wearing the old yellow and blue
Yeah,
outfit.
it's
Very
fantastic.
excited.
I'm very excited about that. Like, it was one of the most upsetting things about the first X-Men movie, was just the all black, like, leather jumpsuit uniforms. And it's like, well, this just blows. Like, why? Why not have them in their, like, full yellow spandex
I
outfits?
think I think now I probably think about the time I remember being like, yeah, leather. That's rock and roll, X-Men. How cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had a very different opinion of it at the time.
Yeah, I probably liked
Um,
it then too, but looking back, like, oh man, they should have just gone full comic book with it.
yeah, that would have been cool. Although I don't know that they had like there was a certain I think that was one of the things that Marvel figured out, like in the great MCUification, was how to make comic accurate outfits that still looked cool, and that was something that no one had figured out beforehand. Like the only
Are
ones that
we
really
both
worked was like
picturing
Batman and
Ryan Reynolds
Blade.
as Green Lantern right now?
Yeah, or Ben Affleck's Daredevil, also
Yeah,
not great.
yeah.
Most of the Superman movies, he looked very silly, even the good ones. It took a while to figure out. I mean, not Spider-Man. 'Cause
I actually
Spider-Man's
kind of like the
separate.
old Reeves Superman versus the newer ones, because it looks just like a normal t-shirt, like onesie that he's wearing. It's like, yeah, that's all Superman needs. He doesn't need some weird like mesh material that goes over his skin and almost looks like it's like a quilted armor. Like, he doesn't need that. He is armor.
No, that's a good point though. Why does he have to wear something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's basically like his pajamas, is it? Like
Well, the blanket is like the cape is his
exactly.
blanket that he was wrapped in as he was leaving
Yeah.
Krypton.
So
But, you
what
know.
about the little underwear? Is that like his?
That's his
Did they just
dad's
send a
underwear,
full set
and
of grown-up clothes with him?
nope, it was his dad's underwear. He's like, this is my good luck pair of underwear. I'm not going to need them anymore, and one day he'll fit into them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kryptonian underwear. I can
Yep.
see that.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So that's it for the very important news. But Mike, you had something you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So I've seen it come up this week again as some Final Fantasy VII Rebirth like info has come out, and here I'll send you this little screenshot here of what everyone's freaking out about, and
Mm.
yeah, it's the yellow paint conversation that everyone wants to always bring up and have about how in video games more and more frequently it's not always yellow, but there's going to be this iconography used to guide the player towards what they're supposed to either be uh, interacting with as far as like moving through terrain, or like Resident Evil games now have like painted onto them, like onto the boxes and crates, like little markers to identify that that's something you need to go smash. Uh,
I always called this phenomenon the bird shit phenomenon from the
that's
Assassin's Creed games,
yeah. That's actually
which
great. That's
probably
much
one of the
better.
more, as I was saying before, diegetic like ways of explaining that this is where you are supposed to grab onto. That
Hmm.
they have like the line of bird shit along an edge or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. It's really a nice touch on their part. But what are your feelings on this use within video games?
I think personally that this is a necessary evil of the maybe not great way we make the visuals of video games these days, and which is also probably part of the same thing with movies, is that everything is just kind of hard to visually digest because so much everything is detailed to the point that nothing is detailed.
Exactly.
Everything is shadowed to the point that nothing is in light. So you it's hard to differentiate like the reason I can differentiate things when I'm walking around is because my eyes focus on stuff without me noticing it. I'm looking at different things, and like an artist when they're making a painting, well, there's things that they want you to look at, so they'll kind of subtly make those things more detailed or make them in the focal point. And video games, as we try and make them more and more realistic, it's harder and harder to kind of indicate stuff like that, where you're like like a painter can spend all day trying to figure out how I need to make it important that you see this guy's head and this guy's arm, and that's supposed to imply something. And you have to do that in a video game all constantly throughout levels where there's no, it's not always like good level design has the time to make those things visually like obvious with lighting and natural means. So, well, I think these things will go away as we kind of learn how to make games like high def and visually interesting and accurate and stuff like that without focusing on the brown mushification that we get nowadays.
Yeah, it's not a full true equivalency, but it kind of reminds me of old cartoons back in the day. You'd see like a scene within a kitchen, and it would be like a set of drawers in the kitchen. One of the drawers is a different, like just a shade different than the others, and you
Yeah.
always know that's the drawer that's going to get opened or moved. Like it's just these weird little visual cues to the artists themselves, like the animators, to know which thing was, the object. That we didn't need as much in older games, to your point, right? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Because you just had that was the thing that had textures on it or whatever.
exactly. That was the thing that was going to stand out because it was something. It wasn't just a
Yeah.
backdrop palette.
But I think also like part of those were like those cues came up out of necessity, like you mentioned with animation. The reason why those things look like that, like oh that's the door that's going to move or that's the boulder that's going to move, is because like they would that the other stuff was in the background and that they'd layer cell on top
Yep.
of cell on top of cell as that thing moved, so that they were actually like on a different layer of of material and therefore had different inking and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So and as 3D video games moved along, like the technical limitations and understanding of 3D like encouraged people to make these things obvious. And when things weren't obvious, they were very bad games. Like like if you ever played some of the later Tomb Raiders and you're like, where am I supposed to go? Everything's the same rock texture.
Yep. Yep.
You know, and I think that just at this point like in there isn't that cue like you said with like oh that drawer's going to move, because like if I'm watching a movie I don't necessarily know that that's the rock you can climb on, but at the same time I have to know that because I'm playing a video game, I'm not watching a movie.
Right.
There's no like I just think honestly like maybe in a lot of instances it would be better just to like have them light up or something, where you don't have to be like, well, why is there yellow paint on this stone that's 1,000 meters in the sky? And you can just be like, okay, this is the universe of the game explaining that this is a thing I can grab onto. Like, I get it. Like, this would be obvious for my character, but I'm not my character. I'm someone sitting on the couch.
I think God of War Ragnarok kind of started to get things right in that direction. They still have a lot of like visual painted cues if you want to, some bird shit on stuff. But
Yeah.
they also, with Atreus with you for a good part of the game, you've got these call outs that are happening. They did it way too much, and I found myself often like just starting a puzzle, and Atreus or whoever was with me as a companion would just like immediately start trying to tell me how to do the puzzle. That could have been
Yeah.
dialed back a little bit.
Yeah.
But some kind of visual cue, even if it's your character talking out loud to themselves of like, oh, those rocks over there look like maybe I could climb up them. Like things like that could also be implemented in a game where you don't have to have the visual cues as much as some kind of other cue to the player that doesn't break immersion. I guess it just depends on the type of game you're playing too. Like a post-apocalyptic game,
Yeah.
I don't really care if there's yellow paint everywhere. But if you're trying to do something like more grounded in reality, there's not yellow paint on like every staircase and ladder.
Yeah, and like the reason why I think these things are still important, even if they don't look great, is like Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a great game, and it's a you know up there in the pantheon of good games, don't get me wrong, but it is very much a cinematic game. And there
Hmm.
are so many times where I'm walking around and Arthur Morgan is just like, I press X and I'm like trying to pick up a thing, and he just slams through the door like he's like like
Yeah.
angry at it. And I'm like, no, 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 just pick up the thing. And he goes in there. I press the same button. He whips out his gun. And I'm like, just pick it up.
Yeah.
Can't you just, because there's no real good cue for that, and they use the same three buttons for everything. So there there's a reason why games do these sorts of things, and I'd rather have them do it than me just kind of, or even like an Assassin's Creed where they just kind of sometimes just do things for you, and sometimes I'm like, I don't want them to have done that thing for me. We've all been in that situation in Assassin's Creed where we want to stab someone, and then the character just jumps over them and then jumps off of a
And
wall,
then they get
and then
like
just
kind of
kind of
stuck
hangs.
between a wall and like another little spot that they keep wanting to grab onto. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just hanging there like like Spider-Man, and
Yeah.
meanwhile they're all just hitting you with
I
swords.
I do like the new one got rid of the climb anywhere mechanic that the newer ones were starting to adopt. Where you could just be like, "Oh, I'm just going to climb the cliff." Now it's like, "Well, no, you have to find like the little cutouts
Hmm.
that like you can climb." So,
Yeah,
they're
and I
doing
think
better with that.
that was part of the puzzle of Assassin's Creed. It was like, especially I remember in Assassin's Creed 2, which I think is universally agreed is the best one.
Yeah.
Um, like you'd have those, like getting up to the top of stuff wasn't just a thing. It was like a puzzle you had to kind of figure out. Like, how do I get up on this? And there was more gameplay to it, I
Yeah.
think.
I I think just Breath of the Wild broke so many developers' brains for so long.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Assassin's Creed's been playing catch up for a long time, but you can see like where The Witcher happened, and then you can see where Breath of the Wild
And
happened,
Dark Souls and
in
yeah.
Dark
Yep.
Souls. Exactly. Like you could see the history of video games in Assassin's Creed.
Hmm. Like they really just need to stay in their lane, and I don't mean that as like a dig, but they're so good at that one
Mm.
specific type of game. They really shouldn't try to deviate from that for the series.
Yeah, and a little bit of a spoiler for what we've been playing, but a game that I think has done that very well, does they stay in their lane, so to speak, has been Hitman. Like Hitman has been the same game since they're on game 8 now, although it's called 3.
Hmm.
Um, like it is just the same game that they refined, retune, go back, put out a game, play through it, refine. Like it's just the best version, except for Absolution, which I'm not going to talk about. That didn't happen. No one believes in Hitman Absolution, but it's definitely a game that uses sequels to refine and iterate on itself, as opposed to like, well, what's the big thing this year?
Yep.
Like Hitman's never searching for something to put in its game. It always knows what it's going to do, and it's a better version of what it did in the
You
last game,
know what
generally
was
speaking.
great, and we haven't talked about this, but I did grab through Game Pass, Hitman, World of Assassins, I think is what this one's called.
Hmm. That's
And
like the 1 through 3 combined into a
yeah,
thing.
and even just playing like the first little demo area, I haven't actually dove into the whole thing yet, but playing that, I didn't have to really like outside of what button do, like learn that
Mm.
controller scheme stuff. Everything else was exactly what I remembered Hitman being like, oh, I can just do all these little mechanics. I can knock that guy out, pull him into this closet, like swap clothes, like do the whole, like everything was exactly the way I remembered Hitman, but better.
And that's another thing, like Hitman, because everything is very set PC, and they're almost like the levels in Hitman are almost like little dioramas of people moving about. You can kind of imagine like even the video game equivalent of like train sets. You can just kind of see these clockwork mechanisms going. But because they're so carefully done, you kind of, going back to what we were talking about, you don't need those yellow paint things on the things to interact with, because like the language of the environment, because the Hitman world is made for Hitman. It's not trying to be the real world, even if it looks real world accurate. Like
Hmm.
I know if I go into the pantry, I will find something I can kill someone with. Like I don't have to like sort through a bunch of cans of tomatoes unless I want to use the can of tomato to kill someone.
I mean, there
Like
could be like a
this.
little subtle thing where you find out someone has a tomato allergy. Like that's the
Exactly,
way this
exactly.
game, like, I love that series. It's so good. And that's the point. Like, by stay in your lane. We have gone so far off the topic of bird shit, but I
Assassin's
don't.
Creed did a great job with the bird shit. Like we all knew what the bird shit meant, and we were totally okay with it being in the setting of the universe. No one complained about the bird shit.
But again, this is the same thing with like it's climbable towers for map reference points. It's bird shit on your stuff for points of interest, like interactions. Not every game needs them. Like people need to stop
agreed.
as developers going, well, the big games have climbing towers to unlock map points. We need some kind of map unlock point in our games. Like the latest Enshrouded, like that survival crafting game that I'm loving. The whole way to like unlock fast travel points and more points of the map is to climb spires. Like, yeah, they gave me fun puzzles that I get to do with my group to like unlock the doors and slowly climb it and loot it while I'm doing it. But God, just give me something different.
No, I mean, like, I don't even know to what extent you got to blame devs for this because, like, so much of video game development comes from larger corporations
It's
full
true.
of money guys who are, like, looking at, like, business guys don't look at things as, like, innovation or new stuff. They're like, these commodities had these, or these items had these things. Like, they're
Yeah.
thinking, like, cars. Like, all the new cars have, rear AC units. So we need to have rear AC units in new the cars. And, like,
Mm-hmm.
why isn't the car I'm making having this thing? And so they don't think about these things.
You're right.
And that's probably why I should be nicer to games that all have Dark Souls mechanics because you can go to a boardroom and saying, Dark Souls mechanics, Star Wars, open world, and then they'll be like, yes, here is all the money. Those sound like all the words that we want to
Yes,
hear.
when I was in college for this, that was like my teacher who worked in the industry was like, this is how you get your game funded. Like, this is how you speak to these people to get your game funded.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
That's fair.
but at the same time, like, I can get bored of things too, and I'm not like trying to be an apologist and saying like suck up and take it because it keeps the devs with their jobs. But
Well, and when I say devs need to, like, I'm not trying to shit on devs. Like, they're doing a fantastic job, but it's becoming very tiring, just like how every Marvel movie looks the same now. Every video game looks the same. I'm looking for the game queue of the tower.
Yeah,
I'm looking for the game queue of walking up a little hill and seeing the expanse of what's going to be, coming up ahead of me. There's so many things.
I mean, speaking of which, like we compared both these games already, but like if you took that new Resident or spoilers, you took that new Final Fantasy Rebirth trailer that launched and just took out Cloud and replaced it with Leon or one of the Resident Evil characters, honestly, unless there was like a chocobo in the background, I wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
There's like this, like, I don't know what do you call it, like, HD 4K style that everything has right now.
Yeah.
That it's very
I think
ubiquitous.
it's
I mean, honestly,
Unreal
God of War
5
to a certain extent too.
What you're trying to say.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I mean, like, seriously, like you could put like Cloud in the next God of War game, and I probably wouldn't notice unless there was, something like a giant.
Careful, man.
Giant.
Careful, man. Disney's listening. They're looking for people to cast into their new game-o-matic universe.
Hey, before all this, we had Soul Calibur, which has had Geralt of Rivia, Darth Vader, Yoshimitsu. Like, Soul Calibur's put everyone in their
That's
games
true.
at this point. So,
Yeah, Soul Calibur's one of the OG for that. They did it great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Although I guess the real OG with that would be Marvel with Capcom. So maybe this has been in their wheelhouse forever.
True. Yeah, that was a great game though. Those were.
It was until it wasn't.
Well,
like the latest one,
fair.
I could not get into it.
No. This episode's going by quick.
It's been going by really quick. We haven't had
even an old man rant at all. Everything's been coherent, relatively speaking.
I think I'm not as grumpy as I have been lately. Must be that lemon ginger tea. Or it's definitely the edible that I took like a while back. But
is that something you're supposed to mix with Dimetap?
I don't know. It's working well for me, so I'm not going to question it.
Oh, jeez. All right. So yeah, what What have you been playing? I'm sorry about the quiz. There's no quiz this week.
Yeah.
I have one, but I ended up. I was gonna. I think I'm actually gonna save it for an episode when we can get our buddy Marcus on.
And
So
that dice game's still being workshopped, so we're going to need a little bit more time on the retro roll table.
retro roll table needs a few more passes at
Yeah.
as you heard.
I've got some tweaks that I want to present next episode that we can just try out and see if it works. You know, I'm okay with
Yeah,
people
no,
listening to failure.
This is a laboratory.
That's right.
We're okay with failed experiments.
Mostly no bad ideas here.
Yes, there have been bad ideas.
Yeah,
But we don't talk about those.
that's right.
So what have you been playing, Mike?
So I've been feeling poopy the last week or so. Been out from work, and I picked up 2 games that I was very interested in playing: Suicide Squad and Helldivers 2. I was hesitant on Suicide Squad for a while, but then I watched some more gameplay of it, and I don't know if it was just articles that I'd been reading or if it was some early demo footage from like early gameplay release footage, but I was under the impression that there was a universal grapple hook traversal mechanic that was going to exist for every single character, no matter who you played. And it was one of the things that actually like got me to shy away from the game for a while. And then I saw gameplay footage of people and I was like, oh wow, no, they actually have their own unique traversal mechanic. And even on the Steam page, like one of the first lines in giant letters is each character has its own unique traversal mechanic. So I was like, I don't know, but someone knew, like we gotta mention that big for this game.
Apparently.
So I picked it up and God, it's really fun. It kind of has a vibe of like a Peacemaker or one of those DC edgy comedy, shows. The cinematics are really cool with it. I love the cast that they've put together of the anti-heroes that you're playing. And, well, I guess not even anti-hero. They're just straight up villains. But it's just so fun. Captain Boomerang, I've been playing a lot with. Very fun. He gets this Speed Force gauntlet, so as he's throwing his boomerang, he can like Speed Force run to catch it, kind of as a teleport mechanic.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's just like flying through the air constantly, throwing his boomerang around, and like it's really neat. Batman in this is truly scary because the whole idea is Brainiac's corrupted everyone, right? So it's the evil, yeah, the Justice League. So it's the evil versions of themselves. And I haven't taken down the Batman yet, but they trap you in a place. Like he sets off a trap and you're stuck in a building trying to get out of it as he slowly takes down your team. And it is actually frightening. The level of violence in this game is surprising. Like to see the heroes be the violent ones, like brutally violent, is really a nice fresh take. It held my attention for a good while, and I'm going to go back and beat it.
Except for those 2 like fighting games that was just Superman is evil. There's 3 of them.
The Injustice games? Yeah, the Mortal Kombat ones. Yeah, but that's like still within the context of like a Mortal Kombat fighter. Like in this one, like seeing the Flash like speed rip someone's heart out of their chest is pretty dope.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's I'm not always for the gore, but I'm appreciating this because it's so over the top. It's fun. But wanted to take a little bit of a break from it because there is a lot of repetition when it comes to the side quests. They start to all kind of blend to the same. It's not going to always be the same objective, but it's the same mechanics running through the core of each side mission. So it starts to feel repetitive at a certain point. So I took a break from that, started playing Helldivers 2, and then I haven't stopped playing Helldivers 2. It is so fun. It shouldn't be this fun. I was a huge fan of the first one, but I was like, oh, this will be a fun like party game when like the other guys are on. And no, I'm picking up and playing as much as I can. It is so enjoyable. It's doing better job at Starship Troopers than the new Starship Troopers game is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a legally distinct knockoff, much like Palworld is to Pokemon, but God, even more so, it nails the vibes. Not just Bug Planet, but Terminator Planet is so fun too. It actually feels like you're in a real war zone with a bunch of Schwarzeneggers. It's highly recommend this one.
Yeah, I have seen it. So it's like a always multiplayer thingy, right?
It's an always multi.
It's
I
like
go in
a
and drop into solo often, but that's because I'm just not a big fan of rando group play. But this game is fine for that, and I will be doing more of that here soon because if you want to get to the higher stages of difficulty to get the rarer materials, you need a full group. What I find interesting about it is that not only is it a third person shooter, well, it has some first person elements if you want to go into a scoped mode with your weapons, but it's also a real time strategy in that the way combat's working, you are always having to figure out your positioning, getting to objectives on the map, trying to create zones of defense, and the whole extraction element. There's a lot more strategy that you're having to implement than you would in most shooters. Makes for a lot of fun when you're playing in a big team because the chaos of miscommunication can just lead to like a full party wipe if you're not careful. Which isn't bad. It just means you get shot out of giant bullet pods back into the planet. You know, and on your way down, maybe you can hit something with that bullet pod. It's just over the top fun. Real Space Marines vibe to it. There's literally an armor later that is just the Space Marines armor, like with the full gold crest and like the little pauldrons that's got tassel to it and gold skulls all over it, and yeah, it's good fun.
love me some skulls.
Oh yeah, skulls for the Skull Throne.
Interesting. Um, yeah, that looks. I noticed that seems to have been a lot of the people on my Steam friends list have all playing Helldivers too.
Oh
So
yes, yeah, highly
must be
recommend
doing
it.
something right.
It's just good fun. How quick things can go to shit, and even then, that's the fun part. Like when you're just constantly terrified and going, "Oh fuck, oh fuck." That's peak Helldivers. Ah, highly recommend it. And at $40, come on, it's $40.
So that's indie game pricing these days.
I know. They actually didn't plan to have so many people playing. Their servers are kind of being overloaded right now.
That kind of seems to be like the through line of the first parts of 2024, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Palworld, Enshrouded, Helldivers, like everyone's like no one's expecting their games to be doing as well as they ended up doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Yep.
interesting. And all three of these games are not big studio games, right?
No.
I don't remember who developed Helldivers, but I don't think it's like a big
I
studio, right?
think they're like their own studio. They might have made some other
Yeah.
games, but yeah. They might have been acquired by someone by now, but I don't think
Yeah,
so.
exactly. But it's not like these are like the new EA game or the new
Yeah.
Ubisoft game or whatever. It's
No.
just interesting. I think that's especially considering like in the past month we've had Enshrouded take off, Palworld take off, Helldivers has taken off. Meanwhile, Blizzard fired had like almost 2,000 people and canceled their survival game, which is exactly what's blowing up right now. And
Hmm.
like part of me thinks that like, oh, that's far-sighted. They know by the time they're done with this game, this won't be a thing anymore. But at the same time, is it? Like if survival games and these would you call Helldivers an extraction shooter or
I would. Well, yeah, I guess it's not like an extraction looter shooter like
yeah,
Tarkov or any of those are, but it is an extraction in that if you want to complete everything perfect for the mission, one of the bonus goals is to extract. But you can complete the mission and fully die wipe, and the mission got completed. Like it's called an
okay.
honorable sacrifice or like a worthy sacrifice, like completion. But yeah, you can do it. It's just a really fun thing. So the game studio behind it is Arrowhead Game Studios, and they are actually based in Sweden. They are independent.
Oh yeah, look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it would be an extraction though.
Yeah, so like it's interesting to me because like obviously, like Epic, Disney have no idea what the hell they're doing. Like they're just throwing money at things, and Blizzard seems to not know what it wants to do. But like these smaller developers who are much more keyed into like what people actually want are are doing really well to the point that they are like they're suffering for their success.
I
Uh,
don't even know if it's that they know what people want as much as they're making what they want to make. And that's just, it's new, it's fresh, right? It's different. It's not bird shit and towers.
but at the same time, like I don't think like the survival game is new. Like Ark Survival,
No.
like I don't know that there's a huge difference between Ark and Enshrouded, other than refinements and iterations. But it's the same game that's been around for 10 years.
Yes, Enshrouded is just D&D meets Ark, like is what that
Yeah,
is.
and Palworld is just Ark, but without dinosaurs. Instead, you have Pokemon.
Yeah,
So like, I'm not like obviously that there's something that these smaller studios are getting right
that's
that
true.
the bigger studios cannot catch on to.
Hmm.
Like they're seeing like, oh look, they're chasing trends just like we are.
Well,
But
bringing it back full circle, maybe it is just what we were talking about with Medal of Honor Underground. The smaller team kind of left to their own devices without the big wigs in a boardroom making like little decisions because they're looking at the spreadsheets of what did well, what didn't do well. Independent studios, they just get to do what they like from games. They can pick and choose without the stress of someone above them.
well, I think a lot of it's monetization. Like you
Hmm.
don't have like thousands of DLC and whatever for all these games yet. I mean, one of them's still in early access, or two of them are still in early
Yeah.
access, so there's that as well. But like it, everyone who buys these games, aside from all the exposure they're getting, they already know what they're getting. There's an understood. Like there was so much more money that probably went into the Suicide Squad versus the Justice League, and that game was in production for 5 years. Like I feel like I've been hearing about it forever.
Yeah, because it got delayed at least once.
Yeah, and there's no way that's going to be outperforming Palworld at this point. You
Even
know,
Helldivers 2, they're just the numbers alone since they released within like a few days of each other or about a week. Yeah, it's already being outperformed by that. So
yeah, I think they said Palworld has already sold 18 million
yeah,
copies.
it's insane.
That's that's insane. Like it has to be frustrating to be like some corporate money guy, and you're like, why can't we just make money like these other people are?
Mm-hmm. It, yeah, I don't know. It's just always funny to see like EA or one of those big people like throw $100 million into a game that no one gives a shit about, and then
Yeah.
one of these comes out, and it's like, yeah, it probably cost them a few million, but like you get the right investments together, and you make something pretty magical.
No, and I used to think like, oh, well, just because the games like these that catch on, they're nothing like a big studio could never make Among Us or Fall Guys. Like no
Mm-hmm.
big studio could ever think of these stupid little ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But these are the games big studios are making. They're trying to make Enshrouded and Palworld and Helldivers, but they're failing.
Yep.
Like it's like these are the big games that they're trying to make, but made good. Uh,
Yep. Hmm.
but yeah, that's our grumble
Yeah, I was
section, I
gonna say,
guess.
hey, we
Is
did get into a grumpy rant.
um, so yeah, the only game I've been playing really, I haven't played too much of it, has been I finally got around to playing the third part of the new Hitman trilogy. I played one and two, and I love them. I don't get me wrong, Hitman's one of my favorite series of all time. I just haven't been in the mood to play three since it came out. I finally did, and like Hitman, just like I mentioned before, like it knows what game it is, and it just makes a great version of that game. Like it knows. Like I talk about fantasies with games a lot, and Hitman knows that this is like an assassin power fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
and like it gives you those tools to do that, and it also like sets up the stakes for when you fail. Like it knows exactly what you want to do, how I want to play this game. They know like, okay, this is where listen in to find the weakness or whatever, do some scouting, dress up in different costumes, and it's just perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the how detailed all the levels are and everything. But the one thing I think Hitman does the best over any video game I could think of is walking. the speed that you walk at Hitman is
perfect.
the perfect
It's
walking
perfect.
speed.
Yep.
It lets you like inhabit the character and look around and take in your environment, and you're walking, so you're trying to blend in, but you're not walking so slow that you're like, because I mean most video game walk speeds, like if anyone was walking that slow, I'd assume they were on bath salts, right?
Yeah,
No
yeah,
one walks
yeah.
like that. But like he walk because part of the game is to blend in. Agent 47 walks at a normal effing speed, and it also just lets you be part of the setting so much better, because I you can because partly because you're trying to be, you're
Mm.
trying to basically pretend to be an NPC even though everyone else is NPCs.
Yep.
Like there's so many other games where I'm trying to sit in the universe of the game and it doesn't let you because everything's 1,000 miles away or the walk speed's goovered up, so you're sprinting or you're like that was one of the things I ended up modding into Cyberpunk, was just getting a decent walk speed where I could, it's more for
Nice.
Cyberpunk than for other like of those games. But like you want to be like, oh, I'm walking into, I want to immerse myself in this setting, and part of that is walking. Walking is in seeing the world around you, not sprinting around like an anime protagonist.
Hmm.
And I think that that should be the most important thing that any video game maker is trying to think of when they're making a setting, is like, can the player walk at a normal speed to take these things in? It's like it frustrates me to no end about Starfield, and that's something I've modded in. I've certainly, one of the first things I mod in with other Bethesda games is
Hmm.
like a normal walk speed. So like when I walk into that, there's so many like amazing like places that are revealed. Like the ideas, like obviously the game developer was like moving a camera through, so you'd walk through a cave and there'd be a big open cavern with like a waterfall and a tree or something like
Hmm.
that. There's so many of these moments in Skyrim and Fallout, but they're completely ruined because you're sprinting constantly. You're always running and
Yep.
you're pointing your gun. You're not even looking at the world around you. So like all that's lost because of the way the game makes you move.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that is why, and I love walking in games. Witcher 3 also does a good job of that, although it's a little fiddly because you kind of get the right spot on the key on the joystick. But there is something nice about, especially in Novigrad. I like you're walking through the city and you kind of can imagine you're Geralt trying to pretend to be a normal person, and then you'll hear an NPC like, like throw a slur at you and spit on you, and you're like, oh yeah, never mind.
Yes. Witcher 3 did an amazing job as like a walking through a city simulator for those little sections.
Hmm.
Like the little pieces that you do get to see, if you don't stay too long and you're just taking it in as you're passing through,
Hmm.
they did a great job of making it look like a living, breathing city where
Hmm.
everyone's doing their own stuff. They've got their jobs, they're moving about. It's not like all patrolled on the same path. I really appreciated that to it. There's something about a slow burn, like walking speed game, like a The Long Dark or one of those where you don't have really a run mechanic as much. I like them because yeah, you get a chance to like play more with the visual details of the environment because people are going to be looking at them longer.
Yeah, and like to go back, almost full circle to Assassin's Creed, which we talk about a lot on this podcast for
Yeah.
two people who don't really play that many Assassin's Creed games.
Mm-mm.
Um, but the newer ones, like one of the things about Assassin's Creed 2 was like it encouraged you to walk. And the idea was like, if I'm down here on the ground, I need to blend in, so I'm going to walk places. But if I want to get somewhere fast, I'm up on the roofs and I jump and I run and I do my parkour stuff, right? And in the newer games, there is just no impetus to be a normal person. Like, I mean, it was less so. I mean, it was kind of weird in all of the like of the mythology trilogy, I guess, Odyssey and Origins and Valhalla,
Mm-hmm.
where you're like everything's so far away from each other too. So you're just constantly running, and there isn't like big buildings. So they're not built up areas. You're like in some muddy town in Yorkshire.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no like desire. So you just sprint around like that same MMO anime protagonist, and it ruins the immersion. Like I think part of the things I love about Assassin's Creed is like trying to immerse myself in a historical setting, which sometimes they're good at. And there's it's very hard to do that when the control stick is like a decent walk speed is like on a hair and your thumb is trembling as you try and just slow down to a normal effing walk without just constantly occasionally bursting into speed as your thumb slips and you run into an old lady carrying a ewer because you know that's how the game's made. Like, forget trying to be here. You need to get to the next mission. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Rant. That turned into a rant too. I somehow turned that into a rant.
Yeah, we're getting to a ranty mood, which probably means it's time to end the pod.
Yeah. Oh. Did you have one more thing you were going to say before we left?
I had some games that are going to be released the day or the week that this episode comes out. Just as a few. I mean, we don't really need to get into them now. We can get into them more next episode. But Pacific Drive, it's going to be like this.
Very cool.
It looks really cool. It's a FPS survival game, but it's more like a horror, like suspense game is what it seems like it's going to be. So I'm very excited to check that out.
It combines two of my favorite things, the Pacific Northwest and station wagons.
Yes. Another survival crafting game, Nightingale, is coming into like early access. From what I hear, it's like really underdeveloped still at the moment, but I'm curious about it, so I'm going to give it a...
It looks... The gameplay certainly, but the art style looks really polished.
Yes.
And the art style is something that I think is pretty unique in general for games these days, but especially for survival games, which tend to kind of hew towards more known genre tropes and stuff like that.
Yes, I'm very excited about this whole like travel through realms. So different realms will have different materials that you can then all bring together to make new things. And then Skull and Bones. Like, let's see what they finally fucking did. It's been, what, 8 years?
At least, more than that. When did they started this as a DLC for Assassin's Creed 4?
Black Flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah. That was 4.
It was Black Flag, which is 4. So you had Syndicate, Unity, Origins, Odyssey. My favorite Zombies album, Valhalla. Was the most recent called Mirage.
Mirage. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 6 Assassin's Creed games, assuming you get an Assassin's Creed game every other year. So 12 years? Has it been 12 years?
When did Black Flag come out?
I guess we could look that up.
That came out 2013. So it's been 9 years.
11 years.
Or no, 10? 11. 11. We're in 2024 now.
Yes.
Good cold medicine. 2024, 11 years. So yeah, you were pretty spot on. I don't have high hopes. I just saw a ad for it today on YouTube, and they had to put some like really intense, like popular current song from someone, I don't know the artist, and I was just like, oh no, this is not.
Yeah.
Like it sounded almost like an Imagine Dragons song kind of in the beat going over it. And I was like, they're trying so hard to make this look cool, and that's worrying me.
Poor Imagine Dragons. I despise them, but I don't know that they've ever done anything. Really
they haven't done anything, but if you put like a song that sounds like them, it's a red flag for me that your game can't stand on its own.
I don't want to buy your video game truck / sports entertainment package.
I hope I'm wrong. I loved Black Flag. It was my favorite of the Assassin's Creed purely for the ship mechanics. It was new. It was different at the time.
Very cool.
And I want this to be fun. I just don't know if it's going to be like what I want it to be. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm expecting a Duke Nukem Forever style trash fire, which I think would be much more fun than if it's actually a good game. Yeah. No offense to the world, but like I do.
No, I played Duke Nukem Forever. Not great.
But we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
So probably more about that next episode.
Probably.
Although probably not, because it'll probably be delayed because this is.
And also, I'm definitely not gonna buy it next. Like, oh my god, it's like $70. No, thank you. I'm gonna wait a month to see like what actually happens from the fallout of that.
You know what they should do is they should take the pricing, assuming the game came out when they were supposed to in 2013. Take the pricing of that game releasing in 2013, and it had been having been sat in a bargain bin since then.
Like prorate it back
And then that's
down.
the pricing that they should use. Yeah, exactly. Like $20 brand new in case.
Yeah, that's fair. Good Lord.
All right. Well, so thanks for listening to the podcast. If you have any suggestions or comments or criticisms, please email us at thesavestatepodcast@gmail.com.
Please.
Or you could send a message to any of our socials at the Save State Pod.
All of them.
If you liked the podcast, you can tell all your friends, or at least the ones you like. And yeah, and, rate and comment and subscribe and all those obligatory reminders of the entertainment thing we just made.
Yes.
So goodbye.
Goodbye.
Do you want to do like a Scott Caratopoulos thing for the stinger?
I don't know. He's been asking me not to lately. Like, he's getting too much attention. So I just thought I'd give him like a little bit of a media break.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair. His LinkedIn is.
You're welcome, Scott.
Right now.